My name is Yair Davidiy. I'm speaking to you from Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. I'm speaking to you on behalf of Brit-Am, Hebrew nations, an organisation finds the lost 10 tribes now to be amongst Western nations. And we use sources from every legitimate avenue, from every legitimate field of study. We go to it, we study it, and we see whether or not there's something in those sources in that area that reflects upon this subject concerning where the lost 10 tribes are today. You will remember that there were originally 12 tribes of Israel. These 12 tribes of Israel, after the death of King Solomon, they split into two independent kingdoms. There was a northern kingdom of 10 tribes in the north of Judah. The kingdom of Judah comprised the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and afterwards Levi, and representative minority segments of the other tribes. And from this kingdom of Judah came the modern day Jews. The majority of the Israelite nations were in the north. This majority of Israelite peoples were taken into exile by the Assyrians. They lost consciousness of their ancestry and they disappeared. And we trace them and we look for them and we search for them and we prove where they went to. That is what we do. We research the subject and we reveal the information. And we also work towards the reconciliation between Judah, that is the Jewish people, and the 10 tribes of Israel. We find the 10 tribes of Israel now amongst Western nations. So one of the sources that we use is the Talmud, or Talmud and related literature. One could say Midrashim, legends from that period, commentaries to the Bible, rabbinical commentaries to the Bible, and so on. So one of the sources, amongst these sources, we find references to the lost 10 tribes, and one of these references, one of the places referred to is the Sambation River. And this legend, or one of the, is spoken of in several places and several sources. We hear references to the Sambation River, and the references are usually based upon Isaiah chapter 49. Isaiah, the book of Isaiah chapter 49, contains important messages concerning Judah, that is the Jewish people, and the lost 10 tribes of Israel in their places of exile. And also contains points of identification. In Isaiah chapter 49, we find that the isles are called upon to listen to God. Israel is a servant of God. Israel will rise up, the tribes of Jacob, and restore the preserved of Israel, which is the 10 tribes. There shall be an enlightening influence on the Gentiles and to the geographical extremities of the earth. See Isaiah 49:6. God calls to the Jews, that is the Jews of Judah, he calls to the Jews who were despised, and he says he will save them. 49:7. The 10 tribes will be made into a Brit-Am, or a covenant of peoples. They will settle and civilize the wasted heritages and free the prisoners, while they will converge together. Their paths of migration will converge together towards the same regions and the same directions. Judah too will be consolated for the oppressions that he will have endured. Much of the troubles of Judah were caused by their own wayward practices, but nevertheless Judah will be compensated greatly for all that it has suffered. And when the lost 10 tribes return, Judah will be recalcitrant. It will be lacking in enthusiasm as to accepting them. The Jews will ask, where were all these, now identified as Israel, when the Jews needed help and were alone? So this shows us that the Jews at first will not be enthusiastic about accepting the lost 10 tribes of Israel. It also shows that at first they will, up until then, not have known who the lost 10 tribes of Israel were, and they will be surprised that it was these people who will be returning. According to the Midrash, this reaction of the Jews is referring to the time when the lost 10 tribes return. And Judah will be elevated, and the former oppressors of Judah will come bound down to her. See Isaiah 49 verses 22 to 26. So as we see in all these chapters, a lot of interesting material, valuable material, important references and suggestions. Two of the verses in Isaiah 49 of importance are verses 8 and 9. Verse 8, Isaiah 49 verse 8 says, "Thus says the Lord, in an acceptable time I have heard you, in the day of salvation I have helped you. I will reserve you and give you as a covenant to the people, a Brit-Am in Hebrew, to restore the earth, to cause them to inherit the desolate heritages." And then verse 9 says that you may say to the prisoners, "Go forth. To those who are in darkness, show yourselves. They shall feed along the roads, and their pastures shall be on desolate heights." Now, Midrash concerning the whereabouts of the 10 tribes, based on this on these verses, especially Isaiah 49:9, says, as we find it incidentally in Talmud Yerushalmi, Sanhedrin, Perek 17, Halakha 6:29, also Shemot Rabbah, Midrash Rabbah 1:6, Eicha Rabbah 2:9, and numerous other sources. Those who are interested, I suggest that they do a search under the word Sambation on one of the search engines on the web, and then we'll find a lot of references to this. In all events, what the Midrash says, or the source we are quoting says, it says that Rabbi Barachia and Rabbi Helbo, in the name of Rabbi Shmuel ben Nachman, said, to 3 places where Israel exiled, it is the 10 tribes according to the context. To 3 places was Israel exiled, one to be on the Sambation River, one to Daphne of Antioch, and one to where the clouds came down and covered them, in the same way that they, that is the northern Israelites, the 10 tribes, west of the Jordan, were exiled to 3 places. So too were the tribes east of the Jordan River, of Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, exiled to 3 places. When they, the 7 tribes who east of the Jordan, shall return, so too will Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh return with them. How do we know this? From the verse that you may say to the prisoners, "Go forth." These are those exiled beyond the Sambation River. To those who are in darkness, show yourselves. These are those whom the cloud descended upon and covered. They shall feed along the roads, and their pastures shall be on all desolate heights. Isaiah 49:9. These are those who are exiled to Daphne of Antiochia. So we look at the historical geography of the places mentioned, and we see what we know about it and compare it to other sources. We try and use it to identify the lost 10 tribes of Israel. We also compare our findings. We correlate our findings with the results from researchers in other areas or in related areas concerning the lost 10 tribes and concerning the peoples in the areas in question. So now we will consider where was this place Sambation. Where was Sambation, and what do we know about the places that and the people that adjoined it. So the Midrash on Isaiah 49 said that the 10 tribes were exiled to 3 places beyond the Sambation River, to within the clouds of darkness, and to Daphne of Antiochia. Other sources along the same lines emphasize the river Sambation, or beyond the river Sambation, or beside the river Sambation and beyond the river Sambation, as places to which the lost 10 tribes were exiled. So we see there's an importance given or implied to this river Sambation. For instance, it said, and quite often when they speak about the lost 10 tribes and their whereabouts, the Sambation is the name that comes up. For instance, it says the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, that is the tribes of Judah, of the Jewish people, were not exiled to the same places of the 10 tribes. For the latter, that is the 10 tribes, were transported beyond the river Sambation. Midrash Bresha de Rabbah, Shiv 73. And so what does this word Sambation mean? The Sambation in the Judeo-Greek dialect then used in the Middle East area, Sambation means Sabbath. Also in present-day Ethiopic, Sambation can mean Sabbath. And the river of Sabbath, the river of Sabbath is a name which is sometimes interlinked or interchanged or swapped over with the term Sambation. And originally we find it to have been applied to the lower Zab River in present-day Iran. It was a confluent of the Tigris River, and the lower Zab River, the name Zab, is related to the Hebrew Zev, meaning wolf. And so the Zab River in Latin versions of Ptolemy and so on is called the Lycus River, meaning the Wolf River. But nevertheless, it was referred to as Zab River, even though it's a name given to it, is sometimes pronounced in a way similar to the word Sabbath, or the local pronunciations of Sabbath. Even Xenophon, a Greek writer, in about 400 BCE, very early, he refers to the Zab River as the Sabbatus. Also, the local dialects, Arabic dialects, they refer to it now as Sabatha or Sabitha, and these pronunciations can easily be confused with forms of the word Sabbath. So this is how we possibly get a connection with the expression Sambation, the Sabbath of the river, and especially if, even though the lost tribes, when they were exiled, as we are told in 2 Kings chapter 17 and elsewhere, the lost tribes, when they were exiled, they had already gone in the ways of the nations around them. They were pagans. They had departed from the truth. They had left the Torah. It could well be that they still here and there practice the Sabbath day and practice other things, other aspects of the Mosaic law. At least some of them, and it could be because of those who continue to keep the law and to keep the Sabbath day, that the name Sabbatha or Sabbatas was confused or conflated with the term Sabbath, because people who kept the Sabbath had been settled there by the Assyrians along its banks or in its area. So this is a conjecture. It is hypothetical. We don't really know, but we do know that the Israelites were settled in that region, and it stands to reason that this is where the Sambation was, especially since we find a people or an area known as Sambatai. Sambatai on the geography of Ptolemy, he refers to the region as Sambatai. So here we have a direct connection between the Sambatai is another form of Sambation. So here we have a direct identification. Also in this region of Sambatai we find a settlement known as Gomorrah, and Gomorrah apparently is similar to Cimmeri or other names which usually reflect the presence of the Cimmerian peoples. The Cimmerian peoples were also known as Gomorrah, and they were also the group from which the Scythians emerged. The Scythians at first were part of the Cimmerians. And in the early stages of Scythian history, they were referred to by Assyrians as Cimmerians, more often than they were identified as Scythians. They were confused, or they were in effect one and the same as the Cimmerians. And apparently they also identify themselves as part of the Cimmerian hosts. So there, this region Gomorrah, this settlement of Gomorrah, appears to be on the same site as a major Scythian capital of that time, of Sakis. So here too we have a connection. We have a connection between the Scythians, between the Cimmerians, and possibly between the Israelites. And this connection is compounded. The evidence linking these peoples with the Israelites is compounded by other sources, by numerous other sources. And even the book of Hosea indicates that the lost tribes, when they go into exile, will be united, will come into some type of federation with the forces of Gomer, which were the Cimmerians. And we will go into this in more depth later, but this is to be noted. The Israelites in their places of exile became identified with the Cimmerians and with the Scythians, and so too this location of them in this region of Sambatai and of Gomorrah and of the Sambatian River adds to the evidence suggesting this. We later find that the Scythians were forced out of the Middle East by the Medes and by the Babylonians, and they moved into southern Russia. And southern Russia became known as Scythia, was part of Scythia, and at that time, or even now in effect geographically, the Don and the Dnestr and the Dnieper rivers are there. and other names with the root Don or Dan, recalling the Israelite tribe of Dan, are found in that region. So till we find the name of Sambation repeated there. We find Greek settlements from an early time period, from 200 BC or earlier, and they were in that region. There were small trading settlements, and we find amongst these Greek settlements the name Sambation used as a personal name. So we find the name in this region. But most of the inhabitants at that time, or the Scythians, were there, and eventually the Scythians moved to Western Europe and to the British Isles. A remnant of them remained behind, and these became the Khazars. The Khazars were a remnant of the Scythians. And first, the city of Kiev, which is now in the Ukraine, on the Dnieper River, the city of Kiev was founded by the Khazars, or by people related to them, and they ruled over it. And in the time of the Khazars, the Byzantine Emperor Constantinus Porphyrogenitus, in the 900 CE, Constantinus Porphyrogenitus, it's a mouthful, the king or the ruler of Byzantine, which was a neighbour of the area, he referred to Kiev as Sambatas, so we have a repetition of this name, Sambatas. And incidentally, this the city or the region of Kiev is the original Asgard, where the ancestors of the Scandinavians, or the heroes of the Scandinavians, had originally been before they moved to Scandinavia, according to Scandinavian tradition. And we also know from other sources that the Don and Dnieper rivers were referred to as the river Osabath by other Osabath. So here too we have and remember that Sambation means a river of Sabath. And Abraham Pollack, in his study of the Khazars in Hebrew, a very important work, he says that early Jewish writers referred to the Don River as the Sambation. In other words, the Sambation was identified with the Don River, or at other times with the Dnieper River, or with the Dniester River, but all of these rivers are in the same region, and they all have the root Dan in their names. And they were apparently confused with each other because at least two of them flow into each other, and they were all referred to as the river Sabath or as Sambation. And from this region, from the Don River and the region north of it, the Scythians migrated, as we said, to the north and to the west, and they also, as well as moving into the British Isles, they also moved into Scandinavia. The very name of Scandinavia was originally Scandinavia, or Scandinavia, or similar names with this root Scat, meaning Scythian. In other words, Scandinavia was named after the Scythians. And not only that, but we also find that Britain was identified, at least in one Roman source, with the Scythians. According to Irish legends, Irish traditions, the Gaels, the Milesians, the last great rulers of Ireland were of Scythian origin. So too, according to Scotch traditions, their ancestors also came from Scythia. And we have shown in some detail how, when the Lost Ten Tribes were exiled, they linked up with both with the Cimmerians and the Scythians, who were, as we said, in effect one people. They linked up with them, they joined with them, they confederated with them, they became identified with them, and they also moved to the north and west with them, and they became part of West European peoples, especially those dwelling in the British Isles. And the legends and the traditions concerning Sambation as being the place of exile of the Lost Ten Tribes, or the place where the Lost Ten Tribes were to be found, correspond with these historical sources, that this indeed was where the Lost Ten Tribes were. And conceptually, we also believe that further studies will show a link between the British Isles and the term Sambation, and North America and Australia and New Zealand. And we will deal with this elsewhere. We spoke of 3 separate regions mentioned by the Midrashim, and by the rabbinical sources, as the places of exile in the Midrash that we quoted. And these 3 places of exile were the Sambation, the place of clouds, and definitely of Antiochia. So we will examine the other two places. We've already spoken of the Sambation. We will examine the place of clouds and also definitely of Antiochia, and show what these places were, what peoples were there, and we will show how the evidence and indications from these regions links up and interlocks and complements what we have already learnt from our study of the term Sambation. The term Sambation links the lost 10 tribes of Israel with the Cimmerians, it links them with the Scythians, it links them both in the Middle East with the Cimmerians and Scythians, afterwards it links them up in southern Russia with the Scythians and the Khazars, and from this we also learned that how the Scythians moved into Scandinavia and they moved to the British Isles. They in effect were part of the movement that took the lost 10 tribes to that region.